Well, our story starts with a duck pond. And with this man, Thomas Young. Because about 200 years ago, he was sitting by a duck pond watching some ducks. And I have here a pair of ducks. We'll have a look at what Thomas Young saw. Just wind up my ducks. What he saw as the ducks swam around was a pattern appear in the water, which you can see down here. Now the pattern was caused by ripples on the water, leaving the ducks and interfering with each other. You can see it in a more controlled way. Here we have a motor that's actually going to cause ripples, and it's going to pass through two slits, and these slits are going to produce ripples which go out into the water and actually interfere, very much like with the two ducks. And you can see a pattern emerging. You can see here, along this line, two ripples are adding up. So you're getting bright and dark lines. But here, it doesn't look like anything's happening. That's because the waves, the ripples, have actually cancelled each other out. Now, this made him pretty happy. First of all, because he liked ducks. But second of all, because it reminded him of an experiment he'd done a couple of years earlier with light. I'm going to show you now what he saw with his light experiment. Here we have something very similar to the pond and the two ducks. Actually very similar to that tank with water and the two slits. Because here we have something that produces light. And the light passing through two slits, actually very close together, because light has a very short wavelength, a very small wave. So you can't actually see these two slits, but it's the same idea. And then the light passes on and hits this screen. You can actually see a pattern that's quite similar to what we saw on the tank with the water. And there are regions of bright and dark and bright and dark and bright and dark. So this set him thinking, well, if I saw the same pattern as I saw on water, and I know that waves travel on water, that must mean that light is a wave. After all, particles wouldn't do this. Let's have a look at what particles would do. For this I need a volunteer with a lot of puff. Could you come down? Your name is?
Jay.
Jay. Could you stand here? Now what you're going to do is you're going to blow through this tube, and here is sand. Now sand consists of grains, particles, lots of them. And they're all packed in here. And as Jay blows, he's actually going to blow sand through this box, up against these two slits, and the sand can pass through these two slits, very much like the two slits that we had with light. And on the back here, we've got a screen, which is going to collect the particles of sand as they go through the slits. So, huff and a puff, and blow through the tube, Jay. Keep going. Great. You can do it a little bit less. That's it. That's great. Thanks very much. Go back to your seat. I'm just going to show you what's on the screen. And this is it. It's not really a surprise. There are two stripes, very much like the two slits. Because, of course, sand consists of grains, like little particles, and they either go through one slit or they go through the other slit. And that's what you're seeing. These particles have gone through one slit, these have gone through the other slit. So this is what sand does, and this is what particles do. They produce this pattern, and it's unlike the pattern that you get with waves. Now we're going to try something a little different. We saw the pattern that light produced. It's nothing like the sand. But here we've got essentially the same piece of equipment as before, but we're going to turn the brightness of the light down. Here we have the source of light over here. And it's passing through two slits. We've had to cover this up because we don't want any light to get in. The light passes through the two slits, goes over to the other side. Instead of a screen over here, we've actually got a camera, because this detects really low levels of light. I'm going to see what we see. Actually, up there on the screen, you can see what the camera's picking up. The first surprise is it's picking up dots, blips. This is light travelling through this, but it's arriving as blips, like the sand, as particles. So that's amazing. But have a look at this. If we collect up all these blips, collected over a time period, and have a look at what the pattern is, we see something quite remarkable. The pattern you see is the pattern that waves make. But the light arrives in blips, in packets, as small particles, which physicists call photons. So this is incredible, because the light's travelling, making a pattern as though it were going through two slits. Because remember, to make that pattern, that wave pattern, there've got to be two sources, two slits. The light's got to go through both slits. And yet it's arriving as a blip, as a particle, like the sand. This is the essence of the weirdness, of the spookiness in the quantum world.